Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is all about a journey that each and every one can take. And we all have times in our lives that are actually amazing, exciting, and joyful, but also times that are deep, dark, and depressing. Now, the amazing ones are easy to live with, but those dark ones are very, very different. And we tend to remember them better as it seems to be human nature. You know, the negative is in our life. As somebody said, 80% of what we take in is negative. So it is so easy that we stay with the negative more often. But I'm also going to tell you that both negative and positive times in your life will change the trajectory of your life, and you need to take charge of that trajectory, and you need to be fully present of it. So my name is Jan Robberts from Key Leadership Institute, and if you want to know any more about me, please research me, but I'm going to leave it there. So the big question already is whether we actually get up from those deep and dark ones. Often need something or someone special to help and guide us. Now, Les Brown, my friend and mentor, said that when you fall down, make sure you fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And he also said that, or maybe not him, he said, well, you don't drown from falling in the puddle, you drown from staying in there. Now, it'll become more sense, it makes more sense as we go through there, because I want people to know that we have so much control in what we do, because regardless, whatever happens in life, it's part of our journey. It is part of your journey in life. And that brings opportunities, which, when we are open to them, of course, can positively impact us and those around us in ways that we might never have imagined. And of course, yes, life presents us with situations we would rather have missed. But it's our journey. And I will take you through some of my journey, and where I explain some of the things that have affected my life more than others, and also how some events impacted, even completely changed my life. Now, you might think, okay, leadership, what has this got to do with leadership? And I'll explain that briefly, because I am not only a firm believer, I've been in leadership development for many, many years, and leadership is all about self-leadership, and self-leadership is all about personal development. So if you reverse engineer that, if you decide to grow every single day, you will actually become a better leader. If you don't grow every day, there is no chance of that happening. So let me briefly take you to, and I'm going to specifically state a few areas in my life where my leadership got developed more than in other. Let's put it that way. And of course, the things around us really shape a lot of the people around us, shape a lot of who we become. So we need to be very selective in those kind of things too, and very aware of those. Because being a leader is not just about having technical skills. I always say that another friend and mentor of mine for the last 12 years, Les Brown, John Maxwell, he said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard that quote, or if you've ever heard from John Maxwell. And if you haven't, I would recommend you search some of his books, because he's written more than 120 on the subject. And one of them, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, is one of the most phenomenal personal development books. The first chapter starts with the law of intentionality. Now, that's a whole talk all by itself, intentional living. But it is, when you look at leadership, then people say, but how do you get influence over people? No, not influence over people, influence with people. And that's what leadership is, not over people, because then you become a boss. So influence with people, it actually talks into building relationships. So we've got all these fancy titles: authentic leadership, transformational leadership, AI leadership, this leadership, that leadership. But really, I'm a simple kind of guy. And I know there's different aspects of leadership, but real solid leadership is about building relationships. And how do you build better relationships? You ask better questions. And that's normally not job related, that is asking about the person, because the most important person, put my teeth back in, the most important person to you and me is usually the person looking back in the mirror. So why don't you ask them about them, their hobbies, their vision, their passion, their family, anything at all? But that's how you build a relationship. And so ask better questions. And how do you do that? You listen more, you listen better. And if you look at asking better questions and listening better, that is actually coaching. There's a whole story to that as well, of course. But John Maxwell also wrote a book, Good Leaders Are Great Coaches. So he always said that you can become a great coach without becoming a good leader, but you'll never become a great leader without becoming a good coach. And I hope because of what I just said about influence, it already makes sense to you. But I said I was going to take you through some of my journey, because the journey that made all the difference in my life, it's coming up, and it's part of that overall journey. Like we've all got this journey. You have a journey that you've lived so far. I'll ask you a few questions about that as well. But it started with me when, as a small kid, I got bullied for being as wide as I was tall. At age 12, I grew to this height, which is now, you can't see it sitting down, but it's 6'4". I'm actually a Dutchman, so we are one of the tallest, if not the tallest nation in the world. So I grew in height. But when I started growing in height and I became 6'4", the bullying stopped by other people. But maybe some of you will already recognize this, that the bullying in here kept going on. I kept everything to myself. I was very concerned with a lot of things. I never told anybody because I didn't even share the fact that I got bullied with people. And on the outside, I was always funny. I became the class clown. But that carried on until I got an ulcer at 16. And at 17 years old, I said, well, I need to change this. I don't want to go on like this. And before you even think about it, I never thought about ever ending it, because I think every one of us deserves and needs to live, because we've all got an impact. We've all got a purpose that we're here. Some of us, or many of us, just need to find it. And that's where your leadership strengths will come from as well. When you really find your passion, when you really find your person, when you really see your vision, and then build your character, because character is more important than vision any day. But you build your character based on values. And as values-based leadership specialist, that's another story for another time. And that's part of where my life changed. But I started reading personal development books. I got one at age 17 called How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is quite a few years ago. I also started Ki Aikido martial arts in the same year. Nothing happens by coincidence, by the way. Then I carried on, and I'm going through this very quickly. I carried on. I started working in the oil industry, in the inspection side. Never hated what I was doing, but in this time also, there was a little voice that told me that there was more for me to do. Already very early on, at age 21, it was the birth of my daughter, which was actually an amazing experience. And I'm now actually a great-grandfather, believe it or not. I'm not old enough for that. I know you're going to say that, but that's how it is. Then some of the things that happened in my life, like I said, there is this positive and negative. I've had divorces. I'm now very happily married to an amazing lady here in Johannesburg in South Africa. And in the oil industry, I traveled a lot as well. Then one thing that really brought me on my knees, that I needed my personal development, I needed everything that I brought to it so far, was the death of he was like a little brother to me. He was my best friend's nephew. He passed away suddenly at age 22. Now, I'd never had anything like that experience it is, but I mean, that's when you need to start leading yourself. Because when everything goes right, it's easy to lead. It's easy to lead yourself. It's easy to lead others. But when things happen to you, where you actually, and I did physically and literally landed on my knees. And I got up again, of course. But I mean, the reason I got up is because I could not let this decide the rest of my life. I mean, his life was finished far too quickly. I needed to make my life count. There is, again, plenty of books about that too. But as my voice became bigger, because that really elevated that voice inside of my head, you need to do more. And I really, even though I was comfortable what I did, I was one of the few experts in the world in what I did. I really thought into this, and that comfort zone became my uncomfort zone. Now, maybe some of you have actually experienced that, or are experiencing it right now. You know there is more for you to do, but sometimes we make excuses. Les Brown said the richest place is the graveyard. There's a whole other story to it, but that's where dreams die. That's where people go who never, inventions have never been invented, books never written, songs never sung, engineering feats never been engineered. You can make it all, but you get the idea. We're always going to do things tomorrow. So now I'm going to come to the part where things change. First of all, I joined the Maxwell team in 2012 with John Maxwell. Again, I'm a personal development freak, so when it came about, I'd already started coaching a few years before that, and that led me to the John Maxwell team. But in 2013, he asked for volunteers to help start transformation of a country, and it was the beautiful country of Guatemala. And if you ever have things that have impacted your life, then this is going to be something that impacted my life in a positive way. And really, the death also, although firstly very negatively because so many people around me got influenced by it, but I had to be the strong one because I was the one with the development and everything. I'd learned all these kind of things, but I had no time to grieve at that time. Again, another story, but I want to get to this. In June 2013, we went to Guatemala, and we went to help start transformation of that country, a country with 14 million people, average age only 20. Now, John Maxwell talked about something that I really want you to take on board. Once you have tasted significance, success will never be enough. Because until that time, I never knew the difference that success is for me and significance is for other people. But in Guatemala, I found it. I saw it. I discovered it. I experienced it, and it touched me so deeply in my heart. Because in 3 days, we were there for a week. In 3 days, we trained 19,000 people to become facilitators in a process called values-based leadership, which now my wife and I are 2 global specialists, and we train people around the world in this. It absolutely changed my life. On the way home, I quit my job, and I needed to work another year because I was a project manager. But it was the missing piece in my jigsaw. And you might come to a crossroads sometime that you say to yourself, if not now, then when? And you can keep making excuses for why you're not doing what you know you are meant to do with the passion that you've got inside of you. The purpose is right in front of you. And that is where will you lead or will you keep following? And don't get me wrong, because good leaders are also great followers. And great leaders are good followers. So you might want to follow as well, but you are leading some places, but do you want to take a bigger leadership role in your own life, and that in your family, your community, your company, and even your country? That is something that you need to decide. Or is it something that you've got inside of you that you know you need to do, but it's eating away at you, and I will. Well, for me, it was if not now, then when, and I quit my job, because if not me, who? So I quit my job. And also became a Les Brown Platinum speaker. I said for 30 years, if somebody's going to teach me how to speak, it's going to be Les Brown or nobody. And be careful what you wish for. The same year, I also became, as I said, a values-based leadership specialist in Berlin, Ohio. It originally came from an Amish country. And that process left such a big impact on me that as a leader, if you feel something that impacts you, you need to share it with the world. Because keeping things to yourself is not exactly leadership. That is selfish. So when for me, one of the reasons was I want people, to this day, I wake up every day, I want people to feel half of what I felt in Guatemala. Because if they do, they have a life that will be much better than what it is right now for most of you. And significance is when you start helping other people, you start impacting lives and not changing lives, because people sometimes ask me that, and I say, listen, I've got enough problems changing this person every day, but I hope to positively impact people so they motivate themselves to make a difference in their own lives and then in their own leadership. So in 2016, we went to Paraguay for a similar trip. And in 2018, I went with my now wife to Ireland, and then we started doing these kind of things online. But it's a whole big story, but it is about impacting lives in a passion and a purpose. And both me and my wife do this together now. So that Guatemala story, I was telling it on Saturday, and I filled up. I still think about that with so much emotion, because how much it did to my life. But that's really my story in a very small cup. And as Les Brown always says, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But someone once asked, I just want to say a few more things before then. Someone once asked if I could change the past, would I? And like most people, I was tempted to say yes, but however, I thought about it and said no, because I am here right now because of all the decisions I've made and everything that's happened in my life so far. And there's no coincidence. Les Brown says, coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. Think about that one. But if anything, anybody or anything had changed my journey, I would have turned out very different and I wouldn't be here. But life is not over by a long shot. Let me ask you a question. Do you want your story, your journey to change? Do you want your future to be better than your past? Now, we can't change the past, but as long as we look in the rear view mirror, as long as we keep one foot in the past, it will be very difficult to move ahead. So I'm going to finish with this. Start with where you are right now, with where you are, with what you have, and with who you are. Open a new page in your story, and make sure that you're in control of the pen when writing that next chapter in your life, because there will be times that are good and bad. And there will be people who will influence you. Some of them, you heard, the 5 people closest to you will really influence your life. But also, don't ever let other people's opinion of you become your reality. All those moments, those people, and those environments and that you are in will impact your life for sure. And those will be the stages in your life that changed everything. Thank you.